So MacKenzie Scott pledged several $1 million to Black Girls Code. So when that happens, did you know beforehand? Was there conversations and then the announcement? And then when do you get the money? Did you get the money already? And then what do you do with it?
Great. Yes, we already got the money. Hallelujah. So the money is in the bank account. But we weren't surprised by the announcement yesterday. As she said in her media post, she did work with a team of nonprofit advisors, and there was some deep vetting that happened before this announcement was made. So we knew that we were selected at one point in the process, and we were really following MacKenzie's lead in terms of speaking about it at the right time, at the moment after she made her formal press release or her formal announcement, and then we followed on. And as far as to what we're going to do with this, this new infusion of cash is to be determined. For us, we really have been this last couple of months, since April, really deep into this virtual learning platform that we had no choice but to do because we took all of our classes off the calendar in March when COVID hit. We couldn't do any of the in-person workshops that we're known for doing all across the U.S. and beyond. We had to put those on hold. And in April, we took everything virtual. And so now all of our summer camps, as well as all of our enrichment programs, everything has been in a virtual format. So a good portion of those dollars will certainly go to building out this virtual curriculum even further, because we won't ever not do virtual events, even when we can do them in person. We're also in the midst of building out an alumni program, and hopefully some of that money will be utilized to seed a scholarship for Black women majoring in computer science. That's the next big piece that we want to launch this year. And then I hope that a good portion of that will help us to continue to scale and grow the program, but also to create an endowment so that we are able to sustain this program, long after I step down and I'm working on something else, but, 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future, as long as the program is needed. So this is a big step forward in being able to do that. Sorry, Karen.
No, not at all. I apologize. Kimberly Bryant is here, and I'm glad you said endowment, because that's how other institutions, from major colleges to other major institutions, they live off of the interest. They build off of the interest, but they never touch their principal. And if we can start doing that with our institutions, with our organizations, we will be here. That's why we still know Rockefeller and Carnegie and all of these other places. That's why there's still Harvard and Princeton and the Yale, because of the endowments. And it's super important that we start to build businesses with that in mind. So I'm glad you said that. Not only did you get money from MacKenzie Scott, Google also gave you $2.8 million. So it's like that Black Girls Code is becoming the space where I remember the struggle. I remember all of the, this. And for people out there who build things, it doesn't happen overnight. But if you stay in the sauce and you're committed to the vision, like Kimberly was, eventually you will build enough, because they vetted you because you've been doing this long, making sure that Black girls had a place to go to learn how to code. And it's Black girls. So guys, don't call up, because in tech, in STEM, the girls are normally the ones that don't get the attention. The girls are normally the ones that don't get called on in math class and science class. And they're the ones that always feel inferior in those spaces. You gave them a space to feel like they had a place and a home. So talk a little bit about your struggles before the money started coming in.
Well, I first want to say thank you for seeing us. I feel like you reached out and elevated us like way, way back in the day. Like, we're coming up on 10 years, but it feels like we first connected and you shared and elevated our work like way back in 2012 or 2013. And you've been ride or die for us, as supporters since that time. And I really thank you so much for that. Because people seeing us now, think this all happened overnight, and it didn't. We started, as a scrappy grassroots organization back in 2011, and it has really taken us 10 hard, long years of struggle in many ways to get to this point where we have this type of support that's transformative. But we started with nothing. We started with nothing but, the dollars that I had in my 401k. In the beginning, I didn't even get a salary for almost 3 years. I had one employee that was on staff. That's Elaine Bobet. I think she's been on your radio show a few times as well for her work, but we didn't have anything. And when I got this notification of what we were going to get this grant and the amount, I shared on Twitter, I cried for a moment. I had a moment because I remember when people in the space, other philanthropists would tell me that Black Girls Code would never be able to raise six figures, let alone, 7. I was told that by other philanthropists, or I was told we wouldn't be able to raise funding and support for this work unless we changed the name of the organization to something other than Black Girls Code. And so to see this level of support at this point in time when I thought was maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line was, it was a moving moment for me to actually see this type of support for our work.
Now, a lot of people don't understand how important gifts are to organizations and small businesses like yourself. How long do you think that money will last to cover the things that you are trying to do as an organization?
I think it was a $3 million grant, so it wasn't a $30 million grant. Our annual budget each year, and just say for this year, our annual budget was right over $5 million. So if we look at it, in very specific terms, if we spent all of that money, and that was the only thing that we got in terms of support this year, it wouldn't go very far if we didn't get additional funding and sources from elsewhere. And that's the importance to what Karen mentioned before of us really taking a part of this funding, creating an endowment with a portion of it, as well as other grants that we just received recently from Nike, gave us $1 million that was just announced yesterday, pooling some of those funds into an endowment so that we are not recreating the wheel year after year. We were fortunate in this new range of support for social justice organizations to have many new partners come to the plate and give us support. So we certainly raised more than just that $3 million. But now for us, it's about taking a portion of those funds from MacKenzie Scott and others, putting it somewhere so that this money can grow and support our programs on a long-term basis, as well as help us to grow and expand our reach by doing other programs, new initiatives, etc.
Kimberly Bryant is here, the founder of Black Girls Code, 10-year journey, overnight success. Tell a little bit about your background, Kimberly, and how this organization came to be and how you got into tech and why it's so important that young women, in particular, young Black women, are coding.
Sure. I started BGC. It was really driven off a passion I had both personally and professionally. My background is in electrical engineering, and I have a minor in CS, but I spent most of my professional career after I graduated at the end of the 80s and, heavy manufacturing organizations, large manufacturing corporations, but traditionally in the engineering functionality of those orgs, and moved to the Bay Area to work at a biotech company. And when I was really looking to make a transition in my career, I found that there was very few women, especially Black women, in the technology industry, even though it was booming here in the Bay Area. But also personally, around that time, my daughter was really starting to explore career paths as a middle school student and finding, that she had a deep interest in technology. And as I started to really put her in these, I would say, summer programs, opportunities to learn coding at a young age, they weren't, they didn't have many girls in them as well, and they certainly didn't have many Black students. And it was really an organizational seed that was planted there was how can I, perhaps change the experience for my own daughter, being a woman in a male-dominated field, and how could I be more sensitive to some of the challenges that she may face based on my personal experiences, use a little bit of the network that I have to create a better, easier pathway for her. And I just kind of jumped in with that as a notion, and right here in San Francisco, not thinking that it would go anywhere farther than here or anywhere farther than just a few classes on the weekend for my daughter and a few friends. And it just really exploded and grew from there, starting in 2012.
What's the target age of the girls that you help, and how many would you say over the course of the 10 years have been through your programs?
At a rough estimate, Lamont, we think we've reached probably about 35,000 students to date. We say students because sometimes we do boys. So like this summer with virtual programming, we absolutely did open up some of our summer programs and virtual events to boys because we knew parents within our community needed help and they needed opportunities. So we opened up to boys. So we've had boys in the program at different times in the past, but we primarily focus on girls. We say black girls. We used to say girls of color. Over the last 2 years, we decided, okay, we're just going to say black. That is what it is. We work with black girls. And we do have black Latinas in our program as well. But we do work with girls as young as 6. And we go all the way up to 18 in our core programs. But now we're also starting to build out an alumni program because these girls are like graduating from college or going into college. And we are really trying to tap them into career opportunities, network opportunities, internships, etc.
What does a hackathon, your hackathon, look like? What do they learn in a hackathon, and then what's the tangible skill that is applicable? We were just talking with Dr. Soares, and he was saying that the job openings, there's like 1 million plus jobs in tech that are unmanned. We don't have enough workers for those jobs. What jobs are you putting these kids into?
Well, I'm smiling a bit because we just got off of a team meeting today. We were on a management team meeting where we're talking about potential new partnerships, things that we may be able to do with others. And we had a really robust conversation around our theory of change at Black Girls Code. Like, we are really trying to create a full stack developer. So when I say that, we're looking to build someone that has front-end computer programming development skills so that they can build websites, they can do the UX, UI. We want them to have skill set in those areas. So we also want them to have experience with databases. We also want them to understand how to code the back end of a computer application or product. So that means we need to do really tangible skills like teaching them Java, teaching them Python, teaching them C, teaching them C++. All of that is like some of the ways we get to having that highly skilled, technically savvy, full stack engineer that can go work at a Google, Facebook, Twitter, or start one of those companies on their own. We've also really started to engage the girls in other non-traditional coding paths like artificial intelligence, robotics. Those are other technically focused skill sets that may not necessarily be a software engineer. So we really try to make sure that our girls have exposure to all of those. Now, we do workshops from January to December, and then the hackathon is more a culmination event where they may come to on a 3-day weekend and they can put all those skills together at solving a problem that focuses on something, an issue in the world they want to address. But throughout the year, we're teaching them these other skill sets that help them pull it all together when we may do these hackathons and such.
It's amazing. So if someone's listening right now and they have young people that they want to involve in the Black Girls Code movement, because that's what it is, where do they go? Do you have the capacity? Now, I'm imagining the capacity is even greater now virtually than it was before. So where do they go? Does it cost anything?
Yes and no. So we do have 3 events that are virtual. And we also have some of our summer programs. This is actually our last year of our virtual summer program, so we'll be done for now. But as we go back into our virtual events, those are free of charge. Students don't have to pay for those. We do have a low fee that is charged when they come to an in-person event, although I will say we don't plan on doing any in-person events for the rest of 2020. Like, we just can't take that risk. Like, we can't do it. So we cannot.
I agree.
We won't be doing any in-person events this year. Hopefully Q1, possibly Q2 of 2021, we'll be back and doing those in-person events that are held in our chapter locations. So we have 15 different cities across the U.S. where we have those in-person events. But for the rest of this year, every bit of our programming will be done virtually. So you can tap in and get your student involved from any place all over the world, literally, and get engaged with some of the work that we're hoping to do for the rest of the year.
I love it. blackgirlscode.com, and you can follow on Twitter at 6 GEMS, GEMS. Follow her, and you can follow Black Girls Code on Twitter as well.